there are way too early college football top 25 polls are out. They come out in the aftermath of the national championship. In the case of, I think, what was it, On Three actually put theirs out before the national championship game even came about. And taking a survey of them, looking at Sports Illustrated, ESPN, Pro Football Focus, On Three, CBSSports.com, BYU, it appears at right now, and we are over 200 days away from the start of the college football season. And I will just say this: hurry up, college football. I love you. That's just my personal thought on the matter. But BYU is in a very good spot if these polls hold. Now, BYU was in a very similar spot last year. Remember, if you look at those way too early top 25 polls throughout the offseason, BYU was somewhere between 9 and 15 last year, and that's exactly right where they start this offseason. Now, last offseason got a little skewed when the Jake Retzloff situation went down. A lot of people downgraded BYU, and as a result of the unknown, I guess we could say, about BYU at quarterback, BYU started the season unranked. And obviously, they had to kind of fight their way up with their incredible start to the year, making the run to the Big 12 title game, and then finding themselves right there on the doorstep once again of the college football playoff. Let's hope this season, this offseason, is a little quieter on that front. And BYU's spot, whether it's, I think Sports Illustrated is the highest I saw at 9. I saw BYU at 12, 13, 14. And I think if you start inside the top 15, which I absolutely believe BYU should be starting the season as a top 15 squad, especially considering the amount of talent they return off of a team that played in the Big 12 title game, there's no reason to think that BYU can't find itself right there in the top 10 if they win like we expect them to win next season. I have had some conversations with those of you in our Locked On Cougars Every Dayer Club. By the way, we did another plug for you guys to join that. And the thought has been, why shouldn't we expect 10-plus wins for BYU next year? And in fact, I will say it right now, 10-plus wins is the bare minimum expectation at this juncture. Now, offseason, long offseason ahead, things could change. Injuries, issues with regards to honor code, all that different stuff. And I'm not wishing any of that to happen because it does no good for BYU football. But looking at this schedule for BYU with 7 home games and the likes of, look at the Big 12 slate, it's not a murderer's row. You're not going to see Texas Tech next year. They rotate off of the schedule for BYU. You will welcome Arizona, Arizona State, Baylor, Iowa State, and Cincinnati to Lavell Edwards Stadium. You'll play road games in the Big 12 at Kansas, at TCU, at UCF, and at Utah. They also have home games against Notre Dame and also against Utah Tech to kick off the season. And then you have a road game at Colorado State. It looks very easily that BYU could easily expect to win 10 games, and their fate when it comes to the Big 12 title game could come down to their matchup with Utah up there in Salt Lake City at Rice-Eccles Stadium. They look to win 4 straight over the Utes, and their chances for the college football playoff could come down to what could amount to be a top 10, top 15 type showdown against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish in Provo, Utah. The expectation that game will be played sometime in October. That is a very advantageous schedule for BYU next year because you look at it, Arizona State looks like a team that could be dangerous. But outside of that, Cincinnati, they're going to probably backslide a bit. Iowa State inevitably is going to backslide. They had like 17 guys left from last year's roster on it. Kansas, a little bit of a rebuild, retool right there with the Jayhawks. TCU, do they have a quarterback? Because Josh Hoover just left. UCF, okay, they gave BYU a fight in the regular season finale this past year, but how much better are they going to be in Scott Frost's second year? Baylor, they've got DJ Lagway coming in at quarterback, so they should, in theory, be better. Arizona, I think, is going to be a pretty decent squad, but they do have to replace some talent there. I'm being very blunt, kind of looking at the way the schedule lays out for BYU next year is the expectation, at least in my mind, the over-under probably is going to be set at, 9.5? That's probably the expectation from our friends at FanDuel and others, and those will come out in due time, and we will know what the actual layout of the schedule for the Big 12 will be coming up tomorrow. They have announced that on Inside the Big 12, they're going to announce the full 2026 schedule, so we'll know how this lays out for BYU, when they'll play Utah, when they will play Notre Dame, when they play, how the Big 12 schedule lays out, if that Notre Dame game is right in the middle of the Big 12 slate. We'll get all of that coming up tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. But the bigger point is BYU's in a great spot right now. Yes, they absolutely, based on the amount of talent returning off a team that made a run to the Big 12 title game, they absolutely should start the season inside the top 15. And so long as you keep winning next year, you're not going to drop outside of that. You're probably going to move inside the top 10. And I'll just say it right now. If you're inside the top 10 come the final weekend of the regular season and you don't make the college football playoff, then we can cry even more conspiracy for BYU and being left out of the college football playoff. But it's all right there for BYU. You start inside the top 15, you win at the clip that I believe, and I'm sure many of you believe that they can win at next year with the amount of talent retained and returning for BYU, along with some reinforcements that are already on campus, and I'm sure more to come via the transfer portal. Life could be very, very good for BYU next year. And could they finally win a Big 12 title? Could they get a revenge on Texas Tech if those two on a collision course, it appears, because Texas Tech is going to start inside the top 10 of the preseason polls. Utah probably start inside the top 25 at worst, probably top 20. So you're looking at a season ahead that is full of intrigue for the BYU football program, but there's no reason to think that BYU is going to backslide, that they're going to suddenly find themselves struggling, because everything that BYU has accomplished the past 2 years has been built essentially on the backs of the guys that are already returning to this program. And oh, by the way, that true freshman quarterback that was an absolute stud for BYU this year, shouldn't you expect that Bear Bachmeier is going to take another leap forward after a full offseason, actually, of working inside BYU's offense? A reminder, this kid had about 5 weeks to get up to speed on BYU's offense, win a starting job in about 3 weeks of training camp. And so inside the span of about 2 months, he went from not even being on campus to being BYU starting quarterback. Imagine what he can do with a full offseason's work in terms of training with BYU strength and conditioning staff, going through a full spring ball, really getting in kind of the nitty gritty of BYU's offense with Aaron Roderick. Things could be very, very good for BYU next year if everything goes according to plan here. And here's hoping it all does, because it could be one of those seasons that could be setting up to have some major expectations for BYU. And there's no reason to think that they shouldn't have those expectations either, because this is a squad that knows what's out there for them. They know how close they've been the last 2 years to playing for a Big 12 title 2 years ago, finally playing in that Big 12 title game this year, and then obviously knocking on the door both seasons of making the college football playoff. They want nothing more than to break through here, and it's all right there for the Cougars. Kelly Papinga taking over BYU's defense. He'll have a lot to prove, obviously, but he's got a whole lot of talent on that side of the football for BYU's defense to work with. Things are looking on the up and up for the BYU football program, and I'm excited. You should be excited, and I think they're excited inside the football facilities down there in Provo.